Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. I'm really excited for today's guest. He is the CEO of Mascot, Ezra Levine. Welcome, Ezra. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on the show. First of all, always fun to chat about Mascot and all the things we have going on. And it was a pleasure to meet you in person over the last couple of weeks at Foxborough.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when I met you there, and I have to say this because I've heard other people say things like, "Wow, like this is a great looking guy," right? You don't really hear men say that much, but when I saw you, I said, whatever he does, I bet you he's good at it. Right. Because I saw you chatting with other people and people were really, you really captivated an audience. So, what you're doing, you're probably well suited for doing that.
Thank you.
So look, before we jump in to Mascot, maybe you could just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your hobby background, what led you to CEO of Mascot.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I have a pretty familiar story as, sort of a lot of collectors. I got into this when I was a kid. I grew up here in New York City, and I was a big collector as a kid. Certainly went through the whole '90s junk wax era. I can remember as a young boy, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of binders of sports cards. Of course, we set up little hobby shops. My brother and I here in our bedroom, we would sell cards back to our parents. It was the best deal. They would actually buy us the cards, and we sold them back to them. It was amazing. And so I got into it when I was a kid. I really got into it because of my dad, who's a big hobbyist. He's been in the market for a long time. He's pretty well known. He's sort of been at the forefront of a lot of collecting trends. He collects everything from vintage cards to Type 1 photos to tickets, you name it. He's been involved in the market. So I really got into it as a kid, but I really kind of stayed with it and stayed knowledgeable about it, even when I wasn't actually participating in it, through my father. And I still remember every summer he would go off with 3-4 guys who I've never met before to the Nationals, whether it was in Chicago or Cleveland. It was always sort of like a summer staple. My dad would go away for a couple of days with guys we never met, but it was great. And yeah, I mean, my personal kind of track, like a lot of other people's, I lost touch with it when I went to high school and college, and I found myself in other professions. I was in finance, and then I was an entrepreneur in different capacities. And then, I was having a conversation with my dad. This was probably 2018, give or take. And we just sold off this other business that, I helped to found. And he said, you know what? You should take a look at the collectibles market. There's a lot of really interesting things happening. I'm starting to see a little bit of escalation in price. And, it's really an industry that has a lot of fanhood and a lot of fandom. It's a very sticky audience, but there really hasn't been a lot of innovation in this category for quite some time. And, from there, I really did a lot of research. I spoke to a lot of his connections, his contacts. I did a lot of work in the industry and kind of thinking about it, what could I add to it, which led me to start a company called Collectible. It's a fractional ownership company. And then I wound up leaving Collectible and, really taking on this gig here at Mascot.
Mm-hmm. So your exposure growing up, your dad was he just an entrepreneur? What kind of work did he do?
It's a fascinating story. He was actually a rabbi. He was a rabbi for about 35 years. And he really used the hobby as his escape. It was his passion. It was truly for him. It was a hobby, but he loved it. And he was very knowledgeable at it. I remember just these stacks of binders and these auction catalogs that arrive every week. And, we'd go through and he would buy something and a package would arrive at the doorstep, and we'd do this big unveiling of what my dad bought. And, I don't think I really had a full appreciation for it when I was a kid. I just knew it was something that my dad loved, and, he was very active in it. And it was just something that gave him a lot of pleasure. And really just kind of seeing his involvement with it, seeing the friendships that he formed through it, seeing, all the various shows and the cool opportunities he got to do to be just immersed within sports collectibles and sports history. It was very attractive to me.
Yeah. And did you travel with him to the Nationals or to the I can't believe I said it was as plural all the time. The National. Did you travel with him there?
Yeah, I did go to the Nationals once. I was probably maybe 11 or 12 years old. I think it was in Chicago. And then my next Nationals appearance was in 2021. And I've been to the ones ever since in various whether with collectible or the mascot. So, but I remember, we used to go to ones here in New York City. I remember Heritage Auctions would have these live auctions here in New York City, and I would go with him all the time. We went to Philadelphia to a few conventions. There's stuff that are still in my childhood bedroom of things that I bought when I was a kid. And it's been great. It's been something that's always been a part of my life. I didn't fully commit to it in a professional capacity until about 4 years ago. But yeah, I think it's really fun. Anytime you can marry, something you would do, even if it wasn't a job, with your job, is always something that I think a lot of people always try to do. And I'm really thrilled and gratified that I've been able to do that.
Yeah. Only the very lucky, right, can
I
take
agree.
something they really love and make it a career too.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
So your collection back in your childhood bedroom, being in New York, I'm sure it's Yankees or Giants or Rangers or I mean, I'm sure it's New York because the New Yorkers are they love their own out there.
It's true. I mean, I have, I think my favorite, not my most valuable piece, but my favorite pieces, I have a game used bat from the entire Yankees infield from what I describe as like the glory days. So it was, you had Knobloch at second base and Tino at first base and Jeter at shortstop and Brocious at
Wow.
third. And so, yeah, I mean, I really, you're spot on. When you're from New York, you really cultivate and gravitate towards the New York teams. I was lucky to be born and raised a Yankee fan, so I didn't have to go through all the trials of being a Mets fan. I was lucky to be born a Giants fan, not a Jets fan. I was fortunate to see the Rangers win the Stanley Cup in 1994.
Yeah.
The one team that we're still waiting for are the Knicks, but I think we're going to be waiting for a little bit longer.
Yeah. So when you went back to the hobby, right? You go back to your childhood collection, like most of us did back during the pandemic, and said, I'm going to go dig out these cards right out of my closet or the basement, or like you're out of, your old childhood bedroom. Did you, I mean, maybe it's a little different from you because your dad was, into this and really knew the hobby market, but most of us thought we were rich until we pulled all our cards out and realized it was junk wax or it was, it was worthless stuff, but it got us excited enough to jump back into the hobby, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember it was probably 3 years ago when I really dove back into it. And it was probably, unfortunately, at the height of the market when everything, was selling for big money. And I said, there has to be a Kobe rookie card in here somewhere. There's got to be an 86 Fleer Jordan somewhere. Like, I mean, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of cards. And there was some cool stuff, certainly, some rookie cards of baseball players, some Mattingly stuff, some McGuire stuff, some Sosa stuff, a little bit of Jordan kind of 90s insert stuff. But unfortunately, that kind of retirement package that I was hoping for from the sports card industry did not pan out. But it's fun, it's really cool. Even, if you put aside prices, it is really cool to just kind of go back in time and, kind of remember the cards that we were collecting as a kid. And it does bring back a lot of memories, a lot of which I shared with my dad and my brother. And obviously my dad stayed in the hobby. My brother is aware of it even more so now because of me and my dad. So we're actively working on his collection now. He's a big Ripken guy, even though he grew up in New York City. We were playing baseball one day with my dad, and my brother always wanted to play shortstop. And he asked my dad at one point, who is the best shortstop to emulate? And my dad said Ripken, because that was back in 94, 95. And so from that point forward, he just completely pivoted. He did a 180 from being a Yankee fan to an Orioles fan, so much so that he made my parents paint his childhood bedroom orange and black for the Orioles. So he took this seriously. So we're working on his Ripken rookie card run at the moment, which is, sort of a fun way to get him back in the hobby.
Yeah. Younger brother?
Older brother.
Older brother. Oh, okay. All right. Nice. All right. Well, let's just switch gears here a little bit. I'm going to let you, give the, the pitch, right? The mascot pitch, what it is, because when we met at Gillette, I kind of got the back half of the pitch, right? Because there was somebody covering my table. When I came back, we started chatting, and it was a lot about the, the sales part of it. But then as time went on, I realized that there's so many more, layers to Mascot than just selling your cards. So I'm just going to let you kind of give that pitch.
Sure. Yeah. So for a little bit of context, so we really launched Mascot, give or take middle of July of this year. So it is still relatively new, relatively fresh. But we're really, really encouraged and really excited to see the immediate traction that's had, and it seems clear that we've sort of pinpointed a need within this industry, and we've really kind of broadened the scope of what Mascot was originally intended to be. So I'll tell you what Mascot was originally intended to be, and I'll tell you kind of where we are today. What it was originally intended to be was two things, right? A really robust, really sleek inventory management tool, and then also a really great ability to list items for sale across multiple marketplaces at the same time. What that means, right? So we have partnerships. We've been able to strike partnerships with 5 of the major grading companies, so PSA, SGC, Beckett, CGC, and Tag, where essentially just by putting in a serial number, it automatically populates with all details of your card, all details, including oftentimes high-res images. I know that kind of having to take scans and images of cards can be a real pain in the butt and a real time suck. So we've really shortened this process where if you have graded inventory, you can upload it to Mascot really easily just by putting in a serial number. The second part of it is we partnered with a lot of secondary market places, including eBay, MySlabs, TikTok Shop, MyCardPost, Veriswap, Comic Connect, Shopify, et cetera, where you can essentially cross-list your items to multiple marketplaces at the same time. We identified something that a lot of people were looking to sell items in multiple marketplaces. Oftentimes they're doing it in a very manual capacity where they're literally creating 2 different listings. Then if it sells in one, they got to go back to their other marketplace and delist it manually. And we said there has to be a better way to do this. So that's what we created with Mascot, right? The ability to get your items into Mascot really easily and then list them across multiple marketplaces without any additional work, without any additional friction. You literally just check off all the marketplaces that you want to list it on. It gets listed on your own store. If it sells in one marketplace, it gets removed automatically and instantaneously from all the other marketplaces. And it's been tremendous. I mean, we have really, really satisfied customers so far. People are just amazed at how much time it's saving them. And then, really after the nationals actually is when another opportunity was presented to Mascot, and we immediately saw the opportunity. We immediately built it and actually rolled it out just this past week at the Philly show, which was, at the nationals. And, think of any fairly decent size, whether it's a regional show or hotel show, what have you. There's so much inventory that's actually at these shows. And there's a lot of dealers who take really valuable time and cost to set up at these shows. And, we want to provide for them a better way to get their inventory discovered and ultimately, hopefully lead to more transactions as a result. So we built a tool where dealers in advance of some shows reactivate can upload their show inventory to Mascot and then essentially mark off which items they want to publicly display. Then attendees or anyone who's just curious to see what inventory is available at that show can go to Mascot and search for items that they're looking for their collection and immediately find it, right? And know that, okay, it's at Ken's table, right? You're table 17. And then from there, if they're at the show, they can stop by the booth and facilitate a transaction. If they're not at the show, it's still visible, and a dealer can upload, whether it's a website link, whether it's an Instagram link, right? So people can still reach out to the dealer, even if they're not physically at the show, to transact, right? And so we think this is, I won't even say what I think it is. I can tell you some of the feedback from other people who tried it. We've heard everything from this is the way of the future to this is revolutionary, this is innovative, this is a great concept. I want to see it rolled out at every show. So we're really, really excited about the initial rollout of it, and we do plan to make some announcements in the next coming weeks about other shows that it's going to be activated at in 2024.
That was one of my questions later, to know where I could do this again, because I actually used this last weekend at the Philly show. Now I didn't go to the Philly show, and for someone like me, I'm a PC Trinity Rodman, right? So you go to these shows and there's very little women's soccer, at any of these shows. And I could walk a whole show and maybe not see, or maybe see one or two, some base cards, things like that. So when my story real quick, someone sent me a lot of people, when they see anything with Trinity Rodman, they think of me. They send me these story sales and things like that. So somebody had sent it, somebody had this. And when I went to their Instagram, they had listed, if you want to see what I'm going to have at the Philly show, click here. It was a link to Mascot. And I was able to see these cards right away. So not only did I go set up my free account, because Mascot is free, right? then I was able to go through and search, like, I just put Trinity Rodman in and search through and just see. So for someone like me, if I'm going to a show, if I was going to that show, I would know I could just write down, "Hey, I'm just gonna go to this." I could walk the show, but I know when I get to this table, I'm gonna find what I'm looking for. So it was pretty amazing to me to be able not even have to go to the show, to sit home and use it and to buy cards, and they actually, you know, just got shipped out in the mail. I did a deal with him while he was at the show, and he sent them to me afterwards. So to me, when this, I just thought to myself, and I said it on the last episode or a couple episodes ago, just saying, like, this is a game changer for people, especially for somebody like me who I don't, I'm not. I may run around to buy cards at a show, but I'm really looking to supply my PC. And if I know if anybody, even anybody at that show is going to have those cards, I know exactly where to find them. So uh, I just think that was amazing. And I'll add that word game changer in there, because when you get to a show like the National, that is just so crowded. Like, I mean, it's usually 5, 6, 7 people deep at a table. This app is gonna come in, like, just it's gonna be huge to be able to know where I'm gonna go, especially when there's 5,000 tables. If I'm going to find what I'm looking for, I can start there first.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. We've had a lot of dialogue with various show promoters and show runners, and I think one thing that was interesting data that again, I don't think it's a perfect science, but kind of interesting data that we came across was, there's a lot of reasons why people go to shows, right? And about 30%, based on their data, about 30% of people go to shows for the transactions, right? For to actually add something to their PC, or to buy a deal or sell a deal, whatever it is. About 30% go for the transactions. About 40% go for the community, right? For the experience, just of kind of being around the show and being involved in the hobby, seeing friends, what have you. And then about 30% more go for the athletes, right? If the show has a lot of athletes and they want to get an autograph. So, we said, hey, look, the 30% on the transactional side, we think we can do something really material for, and especially if someone has just one day or a couple hours, maybe they have kids, maybe a show's in California and they can't travel, right? There has to be a better way to really help out dealers who are really there for the most part for the transaction, right? And so we think that this tool is something that is going to be widely adopted across a lot of big shows, especially big shows where even if you have a couple hours, even if you have a day, right? Oftentimes just finding something specific is hard. It might not be even displayed at a dealer's table, or maybe it's under a stack of cards and you can only see what's on the first one, and the dealer is busy and talking to someone else, and you don't get that opportunity. So we thought there has to be a better way, and it just so happens that Mascot's core product on the inventory management side, really had a lot of the features that we needed to kind of roll out an extension of Mascot for shows. So we're really, really pleased with how it went. Just for some high level data, we got 70% of Philly show dealers to participate in this. We actually had some press on this last week. 70% of dealers loaded at least 5 to 10 cards on Mascot. We saw a whole host of various strategies. Some people put everything, which was awesome. Some people put kind of their 5 to 10 or 20 most marketable cards in there just to try to attract people to their booth. Some people put kind of representative samples of the types of inventory that you can expect from them. So we saw a whole host of other strategies. Obviously, it's a new platform and it's a new concept, but we were really encouraged by the amount of dealers who found value in it, and we were also really pleased by the amount of attendees, or even people who are just who were interested but couldn't actually attend the show. It's sort of a perfect trilogy of 3 different types of people who all found value in Mascot.
So for somebody like me as a dealer, if I go up and I say, like, say if I was set up at the Philly show, if I'm using the app and I already have my cards in there, my collection in there, is it like a drag and drop option, or is it something that I put up there and then does that get saved for, say, I'm doing the Chicago or whatever the next show you'll be doing it at? Will that be saved for the next show, or will I need to recreate that again for the next show?
Well, for selfish purposes, we would highly recommend dealers to keep their inventory fully up to date on Mascot always, of course. But yeah, I mean, so if you have your inventory in Mascot already, and Mascot is enabling this tool for a specific show, it's really as simple as just saying, okay, yes, I'm going to be attending the show as a dealer. here's my booth number. And then you go back to your inventory and essentially just select everything that you're bringing to the show. And there's a little button in Mascot where it says actions add to Philly show or actions add to Chicago show. And then, you're done, right? I mean, the initial legwork is really just creating the account, adding your inventory in. Once it's in there, you can keep your inventory fully up to date. If you sell something at a show, you can quickly and easily mark it as sold. So it's kind of taken down from all other marketplace listings and it's no longer active in your inventory. So yeah, we definitely recommend people use Mascot just to keep track of their inventory. It's a great tool for that. We recommend people use Mascot if you're either even just selling on one platform. Even if you're just selling on Mascot, we have a lot of people. I would say some of the more prominent dealers, who everyone would know in this industry, swear by Mascot as just a really fast way to create marketplace listings because you can just dump your inventory in. We automatically read the serial number. We automatically produce images and we create titles, and all you have to do is just kind of make a couple tweaks, price it out, boom, list it. But yeah, the process of actually marking inventory that you already have in Mascot for a show is really simple.
And I don't remember, and this question just came to mind. The prices I know obviously the ones that you're putting up on different platforms for sale, but the ones for the shows, were the prices in that, or could you choose to put prices in there or not?
Yeah, it was fully optional for dealers. Some dealers did put pricing, which was great. Some dealers just listed their inventory and kind of left pricing blank. So it's fully optional. Obviously, we encourage people to include as much detail, in particular pricing, because say there could be 3 or 4 of one item. We had I think there were 12 or so 52 tops mantles within similar grades, right? And so if I'm someone who has an hour to spend at a show, and I'm probably looking for the best price, right? Yeah. Obviously other factors, but I'm looking for pricing as a big indicator of, okay, I have a limited amount of time. I can only go to a couple tables. I'm going to go to this table first because they have the best pricing. So all optional, but I think the more someone puts the work in initially, the more it's going to pay off in the back end.
Yeah. And I know you were talking about scanning the cards, right? So what grading companies do you work with that can put the serial numbers in?
Yeah, so of the grading companies we work with, where you can put a serial number in, it's PSA, Beckett, SGC, CGC, and TAG. There probably are a couple of other grading companies we're going to work with, but as of right now, those kind of big 5, if you will, are enabled. What I was sort of surprised to learn that a lot of people didn't realize that a lot of these grading companies take scans of the item when it gets graded, and they actually store those images on their back-end database. So anyone who's familiar with like the PSA CERT website or the SGC CERT website, if you search for a specific serial number, oftentimes it pulls in a really good high-res front and back image. Mm-hmm. Anything that is essentially stored in these grading companies' CERT database will automatically pull into Mascot. So for a lot of people, that one step just saves them a ton of time. You don't have to take a scan yourself. You don't have to take an iPhone image or what have you. The quality of the scans is really good. And then so from there, just by putting in a serial number, you can get everything, right? And then all you got to do is just price it, list it from there. I should note, just for people, if you do try it out, Beckett, unfortunately, is the one grading company who does not take any scans of their cards. So anything Beckett will not have a picture. You'll get everything essentially aside from the picture. And certain items that are in really old PSA slabs or really old SGC slabs, like those green SGC slabs, won't have images. But anything, in that kind of tuxedo look for SGC will have an image. Anything that's in kind of a modern, newish PSA slab will have an image. Anything CGC will have an image. Anything TAG will have an image.
Yeah. And if you've been in the hobby, you figured out that one spot in the room with the light and where to hold the camera to take that one picture so it comes out right. I mean, that's probably the hard. And when you talk to people, that's what deters most people from putting stuff up on like eBay or places like that, just because they don't want to take the time. They call it laziness or whatever. No one really wants to take the time to take a picture. Did the picture come out right? And then sometimes you're on there looking for something and you're like, oh my God, who took this picture? What were they thinking to even upload this thing? So yeah, I think just having the scans could just be, somewhat of a game changer for something like that.
I'm sure I'm not the only one, but if I'm looking on a marketplace and I'm interested in a card, sometimes the quality of the image actually really does affect whether or not I bid on it or buy it. Just, having a high quality image is really important. In fact, for some marketplaces, the quality of the image actually affects how searchable and findable the item is on that marketplace. So
Mhm.
the ability to just have a really high quality front and back scan that gets automatically generated is not only going to save people a lot of time, but oftentimes is actually going to lead to a user actually selling more product because it's getting ranked higher in each marketplace's kind of listing SEO. So just something to think about.
Yeah, and sometimes too, there's different variations of this of a same number of a card, right? So sometimes, like I know, with the soccer cards that I do, the women's soccer, it's the same card number, but then there's a variation to it, right? So sometimes you'll say, "Oh, it's this number," and you'll say, "Well, this thing's only selling for $100." Well, there was only 50 of this variation here, but that's worth 1,000. So sometimes just having that to be able to see right away, oh, that's a variation or whatever, too, it is pretty important.
Yeah, no, I just add one thing to that. A lot of times when you're taking kind of an amateur quality image of whether it's like a refractor or a parallel, sometimes the colors don't really come out well. If you're just doing it on your iPhone, you might get a little glare or what have you.
Yeah.
I've been actually very pleased and impressed with the scans from the grading companies when it comes to parallels and refractors. They actually do capture, the colors really well. It's a really crisp image. So I would just throw that out there as well.
Yeah. So and here I have a recommendation. I'm going to ask you because I don't think you do it, but I think it's something you should do, or maybe you should think about for the company. But uh, being a dealer at a show, I mean, everybody is walking around with that phone, pulling up comps, 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 comps. Um, and any way to get comps with Mascot or something you guys will work on, because I think that right there is almost the key to any show, right? Because I just spent the weekend at Hofstra University in Long Island with a show, and it's every single show, the phones, everybody holding the phone up, they have the comp, so it's like, can we just make this a little easier? Like, is there something we could do just to make it just a little easier to have proper comps?
Yeah, Ken, it's funny. Like, yeah, you obviously see, kind of the attendees and the buyers, or the collectors, always looking at comps. But, as someone who really hadn't set up as a dealer, until over the last couple of months with Mascot, not that we're a dealer, but we would kind of set up our table and just talking to a lot of the dealers. It seems like the biggest like time suck, if you will, in setting up for the shows is having to reprice all of your inventory every time you do it. Obviously, if you're doing it every weekend, you don't always have to price everything, but just kind of creating these comps and repricing your items is a real time suck for a lot of dealers. We actually partnered with a company called Card Hedge. So we have it's a pricing source, it's a pricing data aggregator, and you can get that directly in Mascot. Full transparency, and I really like Card Hedge a lot. They're just sort of a newer company who doesn't catalog as much inventory as Mascot has at the moment. So anywhere between 30 to 40% of items that have been uploaded to Mascot will actually bring in a comp. But we are looking for ways to kind of make this more robust, and so that anything you put in will, we're going to kind of try to scrape, their data first. If it's not there, then there are other pricing sources, whether it's a 130 point or whether it's a market movers, whether it's an alt pricing source. There's a whole host of different options that we are exploring. So our hope is that in the not too distant future, you put in a card, you get the front and back images, you get everything ready to go, and it also sort of has some pricing data on it for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you what, like, okay, I'm going to say it, I'm a little older, right? So these younger kids could just fly on these phones where, you'll see me the Friday, Thursday and Friday before a weekend show. I will comp everything, but I will go through and I will memorize all, like, at least three of the last sales for each card. So when I get there and people are saying to me, oh, people pull out, somebody will pull out, oh, I like that card. And they'll look at their phone. They'll be like, oh, the last comp, say it's a $400 card. They'll be like, oh, the last comp is like 300. I'll be like, yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago, and it was like, I have to be like that, because if I'm sitting there on my phone waiting, people get tired and leave by the time I look stuff up. So I have to memorize most of the stuff. So yeah, that would be a huge plus for someone like me. Yeah. But so for when you guys were creating this, right? And I say you guys because you came into the company, right? And that it was, if I remember right, this was Slab Folio before
Yep.
it became Mascot.
Correct.
Now, when that was being put together, and you talked about at the beginning about, what we wanted to do. So when you were just talking about just being like an inventory management company, was this, or software, was this going to be for like the end user? Was this starting to be built out for an end user, or was it, being more built out, for a company, and then you guys kind of changed lanes with it?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So yeah, I took over a company called Slabfolio. Slabfolio, essentially, what was the same concept, right? Of kind of inventory management and the ability to list across multiple marketplaces at the same time. I really got to know the original backers and founders of Slabfolio, and thought it was a really great opportunity. And so I joined as CEO of the company in late March, and it's been busy ever since. Certainly. For the yeah, it was live in the market. It really hadn't been marketed, hadn't been activated. There was sort of a small critical mass of people who were using it and loved it, and I definitely did my diligence in talking to those users, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, what they wanted to see from us. For the most part, the people who were using it were either hobby shops, individual collectors, or dealers, right? And what was interesting is for all these different types of participants, there was a different application for them, right? And that's really what kind of got me excited. Also, one of the challenges we have is that there's so many different ways that people want to use Mascot, and there's so many different applications to them. And then, kind of through conversations, we uncovered, hey, there's actually a grading opportunity here too, right? So we did a partnership with CGC, which will be rolled out in the next month or so, which is really cool. A grading company, for instance, one of their biggest kind of lead generators, if you will, is how quickly you can submit a card, get it back graded, and then ultimately kind of get it listed for sale on a secondary marketplace. So some of these grading companies, will say that about 80% of items that are graded within one calendar year ultimately wind up on a secondary marketplace for resale within one calendar year, right? So the speed of service, the speed of turnaround time is crucial, especially when you're talking modern, where a card value can go up or down 30-40% based on one game, right? So the speed factor is crucial. So we did a partnership with CGC where at the point of at the order submission form, the end user can essentially click a button on CGC's website that says, upon getting it graded, immediately add it to my Mascot account. What that'll mean is essentially once you get a serial number, boom, it's right into your Mascot. Boom, you can list it across 5-6 other channels at the same time, right? So we're going to create the fastest.
So is this even before they get the card back?
Correct. So you'd actually be able to have the card listed for sale even prior to you actually receiving it physically, which would be really cool. There's obviously marketplace opportunities, right? With Mascot, we've really aggregated a lot of inventory. We have a lot of users who are looking to sell items. You have a lot of new marketplaces that are forming who, their biggest hurdle is, okay, how do we get the users? How do we get the inventory up on, on these secondary market channels? And really, a lot of them have created essentially APIs, which are just a fancy way of saying the ability for Mascot and that marketplace to work together so that we can offer their marketplace to all of the Mascot users, right? So you theoretically, by creating a new marketplace, working with Mascot, you could have hundreds of thousands of listings day one. Mm-hmm. Right. So there's all these opportunities we've continued to uncover, obviously trade shows being another one. So I don't know if I really answered your question there, but yeah, it was built for the end user. It's just sort of hard to say exactly who the end user is because there are so many different end users that we've just been trying to prioritize. Okay, which are the ones that are really kind of move the needle for Mascot? Which are the ones who are going to move the needle for the hobby?
Yeah, because it almost sounded as if it was really more created for like the hobby shops, right? And then as you start looking into it, you're like, well, it could be for like the consigners too, right? So the consigners, just to be able to kind of streamline their business a little more too. And then at the end, when you really look at it, you're like, well, now it's turned into everybody. It's not just for this one, it's not just for that one. It's and then I wonder on the other end, I mentioned the consigners, but now if it makes it easy enough for the end user to do it, does that kind of take out where I think this would be, a great tool for the consigners to use, but now does that kind of take them out because it's making it easier for, just the end user themselves to sell something?
Yeah. So on topic of consigners, we actually work with a bunch of them. I mean, I think, the challenge with someone listing their own stuff for sale on their own channel is if you have a lot of inventory, you still have to go to the post office, every single time something sells. You still have to package it up yourself. You still have to communicate with the buyers and all the hoopla, which can come from that. So, I think the consignment companies who are working with Mascot, what they're seeing is that it just kind of speeds up their process.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the people who are consigning to them are ones who really have no interest in kind of shipping, each package themselves or worrying about communicating with the buyers. They just want to ship it once, just know that they're going to get a check in the mail or a wire in the mail or what have you within some period of time, and just don't want to do all the work.
Yeah.
Right. So, our view, and, I think the view of a lot of the consignment companies who are working with us, is that it's been an additive tool and hasn't really taken away anything from their business.
So one of the things I love about when I do sell stuff on eBay, right, is, and speaking of the post office, is, it's discounted shipping. It's one click, print out the label, stick it on the package and go. Like, I don't have to, go anywhere else. They make it simple. Is something like this on, like, is there any, you guys work with the shipping at all on that? I'm sure, like, if it sells through you, but on eBay, you could still get that printing label. But if it's sold on other platforms, do you offer like shipping labels and things like that?
Yeah, it's another great question. It is something that we are working through. We actually have arrangements with a few vendors on this front. But you're right. I mean, if you sell something on eBay, it's the same process, right? It's the same kind of user journey, if you will, right? You'll get notified now by eBay and Mascot that an item is sold. eBay will offer you the ability to print out their custom shipping label. So it's that same flow. And I would say a lot of these other marketplaces do have shipping label deals that, just because of their scale, oftentimes are better than what someone could get on their own. So, it is something that we're going to probably integrate into Mascot in some capacity. And then, a Mascot user will essentially have the ability to kind of price shop, right? Is it better to use Mascot's deal? Is it better to use eBay's deal? Is it better to use my own deal? So we're all for optionality and kind of giving people choice, which is why we've offered multiple marketplaces and multiple grading companies. And so I think it'll just be another option for Mascot users.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there anything else, like anything I haven't asked you about that, it's maybe something I overlooked that you want to talk about, something else that the app does?
I think you've covered it. I mean, we're excited. I think we really kind of hit on something in the hobby, right? I mean, I think one thing that we all think is that it's an amazing hobby, but there are still friction points, right? There are things that probably take too long, right? And there are ways, I think, that we can kind of provide technology to it, hopefully in really easy to use ways that just kind of speed everything up, right? So, I think you can probably expect from us more categories, right? As of right now, we're just in cards and comics. We are going to be introducing a couple other categories, everything from wax and kind of sealed product to memorabilia and tickets and anything graded by CGC. They do coins and stamps. So you're going to see us kind of expand into other categories. I think we're gonna work more on the pricing of it, because I think pricing is something obviously everyone thinks about. We're gonna roll this out to more shows in 2024. We're excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, our partnerships with the grading companies, I think, can be really interesting. One other thing we're going to be working on, or have already started working on, is essentially, if you have raw items in Mascot already, how can you create a really easy journey where you can really submit these cards to the marketplace without having to do work twice. You've already taken the time to put it into Mascot, even though it's a second or two. It's already in Mascot. How can we then kind of map the data over to the grading company so you can submit bulk items to the grading company without having to fill out a manual form, without having to redo all the work? So I think those are some things that you can probably expect from Mascot in the coming year.
Yeah, yeah, and I know firsthand. I send a lot of stuff to grading, and it's usually, for me, it's a whole afternoon. Like, I own a business, and I create my own schedule, and I say, like, this week, I say, okay, Wednesday afternoon, I'm blocking off 2 hours or so because I have 70 cards I have to, plug into that I want to send off to grading, like that type of thing of singles. So yeah, it would, anything that would make that easier, would be, a real plus.
Right.
One of the things I was going to touch on too, and it's just like, as I'm thinking about this, and I think about last year's national, and I go back to the women's soccer because there was like 3 of us that were actually selling that last year at the national, that and like women's basketball, WNBA. And through social media, we figured the 3 of us out, and through people coming up and saying, "Oh, do you know this person or that person? Because this person's on the other side." So we got the 3 people's table numbers, and when people would come up and look, I would say, they'd say, "Hey, do you know anybody else?" I'd say, "Yeah, this table number and that table number," right? So this week, getting ready to go to Long Island, I had so many people. It was the first time ever. So many people messaging me saying, "Hey, what's your table number?" So all of a sudden, in one, from the Philly, where it was like such a big deal about what your table number was, like people are all of a sudden asking, like, "What's your table number?" And I became like, I love the hobby, but I became more of a dealer because I felt safe on this side of the table, right?
Mhm.
Because when the crowds came on that side of the table, I would just walk out the door. I wasn't about to fight through the crowd. So again, I'll say this, and even like I it may or may not be a little social anxiety, right? But I just think for people who are going to be showing up at these larger shows and just knowing where to find things and not have to fight. And if you do show up, and you see there's 10 people at this person's table, at least you know what you're looking for is there. You could wait for it, right? Because one of the things as a dealer, and I do this and I see other people do this, people walk by pretty quick and they look in. So I do some football, I do some hockey, I do some pop culture. So if somebody looks over at my table and sees pop culture and doesn't see the football or hockey, they may just keep walking right by because somebody was in their way, or they didn't see that case, or they didn't see that card, or they just see the football and they didn't see the pop culture. They just keep moving. So I just really think this is going to be a game changer for people who are looking for more specific things. I mean, probably for everybody, but looking for more specific things, I just truly think this app is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you actually mentioned that the bit about kind of people having social anxiety about kind of going up to a dealer, because I think that's true, right? Oftentimes it can be for people who are obviously very familiar with the hobby and very comfortable in show settings. It's one thing, but it can be a kind of intimidating experience, right? You go into a show and there's a lot of people hovering over a booth and asking a million questions, and I think for a lot of people, if they see a crowd, oftentimes they just don't bother,
Mhm.
or they don't ask the questions they want to ask you, or they feel like it's inappropriate to ask you about something because they feel like they should already know the answer. I mean, this really hopefully takes some of that social anxiety out of the way, and at least makes it a much more targeted search. And obviously we're really excited about the ability for, even if you can't actually attend the show. I mean, I've I'm about to have a third kid. I have 3 young kids. I'd want to go to every show across the country if I could, but obviously I can't.
Yeah.
So for someone who just wants to see, all the opportunities to potentially buy items from my personal collection, I really would personally enjoy using a tool like Mascots. And so we're excited about this.
Yeah. Last question. Mint Collective. You doing that this or next year, 2024?
Yeah. So for context, at Collectible, we actually co-founded the Mint with IMG, and it was a pretty cool differentiated show. It was really never intended to be kind of a dealer show, right? If you will, it was never really intended to be that. It was really kind of more thought leadership, and we put together these panels, and people talked about kind of the state of the hobby, and we had grading companies talking about what they're working on. It was a pretty cool thing. Um, the Mint is actually going to be rolled into some of the Fanatics offerings. I won't say more about it because I know Fanatics is going to make some of their own announcements. But I think I can say on the record there will not be a Mint Collective going forward. It'll just be kind of rolled into some form of Fanatics' live event offerings, which they're doing now in partnership with IMG.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's good to know. I know I'd signed up because it was something I didn't go to and I missed out, and then I heard all these people that went and it was amazing, and I said, "All right, I got to sign up to go this year," and nothing ever came. So I said, "Oh," and then when I knew you were involved in that, I said, "Oh, I can ask you first on that." Yeah.
Yeah, I think Fanatics is going to have a few shows rolling out in 2024, and I've been able to hear a little bit about what their intentions are, and I think it'll be interesting. I
Yeah.
think it'll be pretty cool, and
Yeah.
I
I
think
think everybody is waiting. And any partnership talk with you guys? with that, with your?
Yeah, we've been, we actually at Card Vault at Foxborough, we had the opportunity to kind of showcase what we're working on with Mascot with show tools, and it's a really great team over there with Fanatics Events. I don't know if people know this, but the people who are running Fanatics Events are the people who really kind of founded and promoted Comic-Con in New York City. And I think it's in other parts of the country or world as well. So that they have extensive experience within live events and really kind of make them spectacles, not just sort of consumer shows. So yeah, they're very much aware of what we're doing. We definitely have a good relationship with them. So we'll see. I think they're still finalizing plans for exactly what they want to roll out. But yeah, I think for that 30% of the transactional side for these shows, I think Mascot's gonna be a great tool for that.
Nice, nice. And you don't have the next. Do you know the next show yet that that you're going to be set up for? That not set up, but you could use the app for.
We do. Yeah, I mean, I think we were very pleased with kind of how Philly went, and so yeah, we've absolutely kind of signed partnerships and signed deals to roll us out in 2024. I don't think we're quite ready to make the announcement just yet, but yeah, it'll be coming to big shows, ones that people really know about, and I think this works really, really well for the big shows, right? Where there's just so much inventory, it's hard to kind of sift through the noise, hard to find something you want and like. And so, yeah, and I should probably just say thank you, first of all, to the Philly show, to Joe Drellick, for that initial opportunity to kind of take our technology and put it to use. I've always been very impressed with the Philly show, first of all, but with Joe Drellick, his team and their kind of vision for what the future of shows could be. And so I think we're all pleased with it, and we'll be making some announcements shortly. I would assume in terms of where Mascot's going to be in 2024.
Nice, nice. I know my next big show is going to be Culture Collision in Atlanta. So I hope to see you there. I know you can't say anything one way or another, but I hope to see you there.
Yeah, well, I'll likely be there. I'm actually having a baby in about a week, so my schedule is gonna be a little bit in flux for a couple of weeks. If we don't activate Culture Collision this year, it's just because of that.
Yeah.
But huge fan of Roth and huge fan of what they've built over there.
Yeah.
And I do imagine that Mascot will be coming to Culture Collision at some point in the future.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Your third?
Our third, yeah, our third and final. Third
Nice.
and final.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell everybody, Ezra, where if they want to get in touch with you, if they have any more questions or comments.
Yep. So our website is withmascot.com, WITH mascot, MASCOT.com. You can find us on any social media channel at withmascot. And if you want to sign up for the platform and test it out, if you have any questions whatsoever, we have a really responsive team. So you can reach us either at support@withmascot.com, or I'll even give out my personal email, which is Ezra@withmascot.com.
And the app is free. I know I mentioned that earlier, but the app is free, right?
It's free to use, free to sign up, and it's a really great tool. And I think people, if they give it a chance, will be very pleased with it.
I recommend everybody go out, give it a try, sign up, check it out, take it for a ride. Ezra, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken, and I'm sure I'll see you soon at the show.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks, Ken.